Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is leading aircraftswoman Bethany Magner. Today, we commemorate the International Day of United Nations Peacekeepers. Australia made its first peacekeeping deployment in 1947, and since then, not a day has passed without Australian peacekeepers serving in the field. Australian peacekeepers have served in a wide range of roles across the globe and have contributed to more than 60 international peacekeeping operations. Royal Australian Air Force helicopters operated in the Sinai as Egypt and Israel ended 3 decades of hostilities. Australian personnel took part in a British Commonwealth operation when Zimbabwe won its independence, and a larger Australian contingent assisted a UN operation in Namibia. Royal Australian Navy ships enforced sanctions against Iraq before and after the Gulf War, and Australian peacekeepers have seen service in Somalia, Cambodia, Rwanda, Bougainville and East Timor. Today we pay our respects to the men and women commemorated here on the Roll of Honour and to the survivors who returned home. We're honoured this evening to acknowledge Sharon Bown, National President of the Air Force Association. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. And during this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. Australia's Federation Guard is a tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catapult party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. If you're able, I invite you all to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Andrew Brunton. Andrew Brunton was born in 1892 to John and Euphemia Brunton of Perthshire, Scotland. He was educated at Merthley Public School in Perthshire and came to Australia when he was 19 years old. He first travelled to New South Wales before going on to Fremantle, arriving there in January 1912. His primary interest was agriculture, and by the time war broke out in 1914, he was working as a stockman. Andrew Brunton enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in April 1916. He underwent a period of training in Australia before leaving for active service overseas the following October with reinforcements to the 16th Battalion. During the long voyage to England, Brunton enjoyed his stay in Durban, where he had 2 days leave. In Cape Town, he and his mates went missing to go up Table Mountain and get drunk on illegally acquired beer. After leaving Cape Town, the ship's engines broke down and they were stranded for 12 hours before they could get going again. They made it to Sierra Leone, where their previous behaviour saw them banned from going ashore. It made no difference because, as Brunton said, we took it into our own hands and swung onto the coal loiter that was there, 150 of us. They were fined on their return to the ship in the morning, but Brunton wrote, "We had our money's worth and were quite satisfied." From there, the voyage was rough. A storm saw 4 men have their legs broken by a massive wave washing them along deck. Brunton wrote, "We had a very disastrous voyage. I would not like to have another one like it." After arriving in England, Private Brunton was sent to Codford, where he continued training on Salisbury Plain. One of the first things he did was ask for 2 friends that he had enlisted before him, Mick and Willie, and he found that they had already been sent to France. 2 months later, he was sent to join them. Private Brunton joined the 16th Battalion on the Western Front as it was withdrawn to a camp just behind the front lines of the Somme. Over the next few weeks, the men were involved in repairing and improving roads, huts, railways, and trenches. During this time, the German army withdrew to a position known as the Hindenburg Line, and the 16th Battalion was called on to follow the enemy's retreat. On the 10th of April 1917, the 16th Battalion was notified that it was to take part in an attack on the Hindenburg Line itself near Bullecourt. The men moved in position in early hours of the following morning. This was to be their first experience of fighting with tanks, a new weapon which had entered the war in September 1916. The 16th Battalion's part of the operation at Bullecourt was to be supported by 6 tanks. However, 3 did not make it to the front line, either stuck in sunken roads or suffering from mechanical failure. 2 stopped halfway to commence firing, drawing German fire onto the advancing infantry, and the tank that made it to the first objective was put out of action by artillery fire. Although the Australian infantry managed to capture parts of their objectives on the 11th of April 1917, they were soon forced to retire and the attack became a costly failure. The 16th Battalion went into the attack with a fighting strength of 20 officers and 797 other ranks. Just 3 officers and 87 other ranks returned. Among those killed in action was Private Andrew Brunton. A member of the 16th Battalion who lost his legs in the attack later recalled that poor old Mick and Willie and Andy Brunton got killed before they reached the first trench. Another witness thought that Brunton had reached the German second line before he was hit in the chest by a bomb and killed outright. Andrew Brunton was 25 years old. He was killed almost exactly 1 year after enlisting. Andrew Brunton's body was lost in the vicious fighting around Bullecourt, and today he has no known grave. Instead, he is commemorated on the Australian National Memorial at Villers-Bretonneux, alongside more than 10,000 Australians killed on the Somme who have no known grave. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his name listed on the Villers-Bretonneux Memorial is displayed today beside the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of our many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Andrew Brunton, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
Hello, party shows.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Come on, party, please. Hey!
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Come on, party in words. Come on, party. Way. March.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.